This is the student iPad preview, and this is for iPads that are going to be distributed at Turner Primary School, Leeds Central School, and Green Central School. My name is Jeff Sear. I'm the technology teacher at two of those schools, TPS and LCS, and I will be guiding you through what to expect on the student iPads when they get in the hands of your students. So in today's session, I'm going to actually begin by showing you a quick trick, I should say, for app switching. This is something that may be good for you to use with your students as they're going to be needing to potentially go back and forth between apps. So it might be a good idea for you to show them how to do this. I will show you how to do it. Then we're going to go through what you're going to see on the dock. We're going to talk about how apps are organized into different folders, and then we're going to talk about other apps and features, and then if there's time at the end, we'll do a quick Q&A. So there are two ways to quickly switch between apps, and you can see that I've got a little GIF going there to kind of show you two of those ways. The first one is to double tap, and you can see in the graphic that I double tap the home screen button. And you have to do it pretty quickly, because if you don't do it fast enough, then it will just think you're pressing the home screen button once and take you right to the home screen. So you're going to want to do it twice. I'm actually going to do it right now. And you'll see that now I have a list of apps and things that are now open on my iPad that I can switch to. I can swipe through and see a full list. They tend to populate really quickly, and you tend to get a lot of them. And I can also swipe up too to close an app. So if I just do that, and of course you can't see my finger doing that, but I just basically pressed on the window and swiped up, and it went away. And then if I want to go back to another app, say if I want to go to Zoom, then I can just press that, and here I am on the Zoom screen. And I'm going to double tap again to go back to my slides. So the other way to do this is by pressing and swiping up from the bottom of your screen. Okay, and you have to do this a little bit slower, not as fast as the double tap, because if you swipe up really quickly from the bottom, then it will just close and bring you back to the home screen. If any of you have some of the newer iPhones without a home screen button, it's the same mechanic. But the trick is that you want to press until you see the dock. So I'm going to press and hold. And then you see here I am back at the app switcher. You can also just swipe up to bring up your dock, and then press on one of the icons on the dock to switch back to that as well. So I could go and press on Zoom and go back to my Zoom window. So pretty cool stuff. So we're going to talk about the dock. So I'm actually going to bring it up on the screen. It's going to look very similar to what the students are going to see. Obviously, I'm doing this on my iPad, so it's not an exact copy of the student screens, but it's pretty close. So on the dock, you can see I have a couple of different applications. I have Safari, which is the web browser. I have Seesaw, which is the icon with the word class in it. Then I have Zoom. Then I have Google Meet. Then I have Camera, and I have Photos. So those are the main apps that are on the dock. In addition to that, we're also going to have two other icons, and these are what are called web clips, which are kind of like bookmarks. So when you press on them, it will bring you to a website using the Safari browser. Now, all of the student devices at GCS, TPS, and LCS are going to see the icon furthest to the left with the books. That's going to be the district-wide library page. So the district librarians have been working on a single website that will include resources for all of the elementary schools. So that icon will be accessible on all the student devices, and when you tap on it, it will bring you to that website. In addition, we also have the library card catalogs. Now, because each of these card catalogs is a different link, it's a different website, we had to differentiate between the different schools. So what I've done here is I basically found a picture of each school's mascot with a book. And that's how you're going to be able to tell what the card catalog is. So if your students are at Leeds Central School, or you're a virtual teacher and you have students coming from Leeds Central School, they're going to see the eagle for their card catalog. If they're coming from TPS, they're going to see the owl. And if they're coming from GCS, they're going to see the gator. So again, I don't have those icons on my screen, and that's because my iPad is not configured the way that the student devices are. So I wasn't able to replicate those icons on my device. But that's just to let you know that that's going to be there and that's what it's going to look like. So I'm actually going to get out of my, my presentation here so I can get to the home screen. And so again, you can see the dock is on the bottom. Most everything looks the same from the student to the to my personal device, but there are a few differences, nothing major. But one thing that you can see is that we have folders across the top. So app folders are just a place where we can have multiple apps in one place, and they're a little bit more organized. And that helps just because there's more apps than what we can actually fit on the home screen. So instead of having to swipe back and forth and getting lost trying to find where a certain app is, we can use folders to organize them so they can be found much easier. And so you can see across the top, we have 4 app folders, and they're organized mostly by subject. So we have a reading folder, a math folder, a tech folder, and an Apple folder. So inside the reading folder, and you just have to tap on the folder, and it will open up for you. We have 7 reading apps on the iPads. We have Epic, Kids A to Z, which is Raz Kids, Tumble Books, Starfall ABCs, Starfall Learn to Read, Starfall It's Fun to Read, and Starfall I'm Reading. So for those of you who have used Starfall with your students on a laptop or a desktop or maybe one of the Chrome tablets, the web version of this has all the activities on one website, and you can kind of switch back and forth between them. On the tablets, they've separated out the different levels into different apps. So Starfall ABCs is definitely going to be your pre-K and K. Starfall Learn to Read, your K and 1. Starfall Fun to Read, your 1 and 2. And Starfall I'm Reading, your grade 2. So each one is a little bit more complex in terms of the skills and content that they cover. So that's the reading folder. And so to get out of a folder, you just need to either tap on any area that's outside of the folder where the apps are, or you just need to press the home screen button. So here I am, I'm back to the home screen. Now we're going to talk about the math folder. So the math folder has a few apps. I think some teachers at GCS use SumDog. I'm not sure about LCS or TPS, but I know that IXL is used pretty widely. And then we have 8 math manipulative apps, which I demonstrated during a training session in June. So those are on the devices. And if you access this training from my website, you'll find a link to that training so you can see what's going on with those as well. I do want to talk about IXL specifically for a minute, and that's because when you go to sign in on the laptops or the desktops that your students have used in the past, when your students have gone to sign in, we had created a link off of our respective websites to bring you to an MSAD 52 specific login page. So we can't replicate that with the IXL app. So the one thing that you need to know is that when you sign in for the first time, you'll see there's a blank username and a blank password. And on the custom login page that you would go on a laptop, you would see a blank username, but then you would see @MSAD52 on it. So if you're going to log into an iPad, into IXL on an iPad for the first time, you do have to type that full username and then @MSAD52, and then do the password. When you hit sign in, it will ask you if you want to save that @MSAD52 for the future, and then you would select yes. And so when you sign out of IXL, which the students don't really need to do in the first place since it's going to be their device, but if they did, then when you get back to this login screen, to the right of the username box, you would see where it says @MSAD52. So I did want to share that about IXL. So now there's the tech folder, and that's largely for apps that I'm going to want students to have access to. One of my hopes, and certainly this would be down the road after I get myself out from the mountain of devices, is I am hoping to do some sort of fully remote technology class with students. And these are some of the apps that students are going to need access to. So if I open the tech folder, you'll see I have something called Scratch Junior. I have a link to my technology page. So if I go to my slideshow just for a second here, on the student iPads, you will see this little desktop computer icon. And that will be for my website, for GCS and, for LCS and TPS. And for students on from GCS, this icon will bring them to Mr. Fournier's website. So just so you know about that. But it'll be in the same place, in the same folder. And if your students are from my schools, they'll get to my website. And if they're at Mr. Fournier's website, they'll get to his, or Mr. Fournier's school, they'll get to his website. There's also code.org, which I use pretty frequently with my students. There's an app called Blockly, which we're not going to use virtually, but hopefully in the future when we're back fully in person, we'll be using this with the Dash robots that I have. And then there's Tinkercad, which is a 3D design application. So that's the tech folder. Finally, there's the Apple folder. These are Apple apps that come stock with the iPads. And I'm not sure how much they'll get used, but I did kind of leave them here because you may find them of use. So if you haven't heard of any of these before, GarageBand is an audio recording application. You can record microphone, you can add instrumentation. There's a lot of things you can do. Whether you want to just record some audio of yourself talking, or you want to make a podcast or something along those lines. That's what GarageBand would do. iMovie is a video editing application, similar to what you would find on an Apple laptop. Clips is another video application, and it's kind of intended more for like Instagram or like social media or something like that. But there are some educational applications there, particularly if you're doing something that's very short. And then there's books. So I don't know that we're going to be using any ebooks, but if so, that may be the application you're going to use. So those are the Apple apps. So a couple of other apps of note on the screen. So Nuea. There is a Nuea testing app. We're going to go into it right now, and it's going to load. All of you should recognize this login screen. It looks exactly the same no matter what device you're on, whether you're on a tablet, whether you're on whether you're on a desktop or a laptop. The login process and really the testing process in general is exactly the same. The only difference is that students will be answering questions by tapping on a screen rather than using a mouse or a trackpad. So pretty easy to use and figure out, I think. There's also the clock app, which there's nothing particularly special about the clock app. You have a world clock, you have alarms, you have a bedtime, stopwatch, and timer. So you may find it useful to show families how to set an alarm or use the timer as part of their schoolwork. This is where you would do all of those things. It's under the clock app. The last one I guess I want to talk about is the one called SelfService. So all of the student iPads are configured remotely in a program called Jamf. And as part of that, one of the things that we're able to do is push out apps to the iPads either automatically or through a process called SelfService. So if we ever pushed apps through SelfService, what that would mean is in order to get the app on that device, the families would need to go into SelfService and install it. I don't foresee us using SelfService very much with students. I think most everything that we're going to do is going to be automatically installed if we do any additional installations. But I just wanted to let you know that that is there. A couple other things of note on your home screen is the dock. You'll notice that I have the 6 main apps that we talked about earlier: Safari, Seesaw, Zoom, Google Meet, Camera, and Photos. And then you'll see there's a vertical line there, and then there's 3 other apps. So one of the things that happens with the dock is that it will show you the 3 most recent apps that you have accessed that aren't already on the dock. So obviously I've been accessing Zoom this whole time, but it doesn't show up on the right-hand side of the dock because it's already on the left-hand side of the dock. However, during this training, I have accessed Nuea app, the Clock app, and the Google Slides apps. So you'll see that those 3 are on the right side. And as you go through and use different apps, this list will change. So it's kind of a way of being a little bit of a shortcut for students to find apps, but these do change in the rotation as you use other ones. I also want to show you about the control center. And there's actually kind of 2 quote unquote centers. There's a notification center and there is the control center. And you can get to either one depending on where you swipe down from the top of the screen. So we talked about swiping up either to get to home or get to app switcher. So now we're swiping down to get to notification center or control center. So notification center is a swipe down from the middle of the screen. So if I swipe, you'll see right there. And the notification center just has the time and then has any active notifications that are on your iPad. And then I can swipe back up or press the home screen to get rid of it. The control center is going to be a swipe down from the top right corner. And so what I like to do is I like to have my finger near all of those little icons in the top right, and then I swipe down from there. And you'll see that I have a bunch of choices on here that you can use. So a couple of ones that I want to note are the display brightness, which is where the sun is. And so I can adjust that up and down to adjust the brightness on my screen. Obviously, you're not going to see that on your end. You can also turn on dark mode and night shift. So dark mode basically just takes a lot of the backgrounds in apps and kind of inverts the colors. So usually you'd have like a black text on a white background. Dark mode switches it to a white text on black background. So if I turn on dark mode here, you'll see that there are a couple of design changes in here. And like if I went to Safari and opened a new tab, you'll see that in dark mode, it would look a little bit different. So we'll go back to Control Center. Night shift is a filter for your screen that reduces the amount of blue light that it emits. Night shift is something you can turn on here manually. You can also configure times for it to be on in the settings. You have a volume adjuster here. You can also use the volume buttons on the side of the iPad as well. And then lock rotation, which right now is the red lock with the arrow around it. That actually means that it's on. So what happens here is if your iPad screen is oriented one way, with screen lock, it won't change if you turn it. So I have it locked in landscape mode. If I turn this off and then rotate my iPad, well, let's see if it does it. There we go. You'll see how it changes the appearance of my iPad. So I didn't necessarily want that to happen, especially in this training, so I locked my rotation. And then the one at the very bottom is screen recording. So this is something you're probably going to want to teach your students as well, is how to screen record. So that way, if they're doing something like in a math manipulative app or maybe something in IXL or something, and you want them to capture something to put into Seesaw, this would be a good tool to use. And to screen record, you would just hit that button. It's currently recording right now. You can see the red record circle is on and off. That's because I'm sharing my screen with Zoom. So I can't necessarily show you what this is going to look like to do it. But if I press it, it'll give you a countdown from 3, 2, 1, and then it will start recording. Another thing too, if you look in the top right corner of my screen, I have a little red oval with the record circle inside of it. So that's to let me know that something is currently recording my screen. In this case, it's Zoom. I can actually press on that, and I can hit stop from this point to make it stop recording. Another thing that's really important with this, and I think I've ensured so far that all of the student devices from LCS and TPS have this, but by default, when you screen record, the microphone is actually turned off. So if you're wanting your students to narrate something, by default, it's not going to capture that unless you turn it on. So what I actually need to do here is long press or just hold down that screen record button. And then you'll see that right below where it says stop recording, there's a little microphone symbol and it says microphone off. So to change this, I would press it so that the microphone turns on, so that when I am screen recording, you'll get that sound that you're going to want to hear from students. All right, so now we're going to talk, we're going to finish up here with some other important features that you won't necessarily see on the iPads, but they're definitely worth talking about. The first one is web filtering. So we're using an application called Cisco Security Connector, which we've actually kind of hidden a little bit. But it is there. And this app, what it's going to do is it's going to filter the students' internet access from anywhere. So obviously, when they're at school, we have a filter on the network that filters network traffic, so students don't get into anything that's inappropriate. But on the iPads with Cisco Security Connector, that's actually going to give students access, or it's going to filter students' access from anywhere they connect to the internet, including at home. So if you've had any parents asking about web filtering or security, we are filtering from on the device from anywhere. Another thing that's definitely worth noting is that families are not able to add or remove apps. So the App Store is not even available on these iPads. So families are not able to add or remove apps. We're not going to be taking requests from parents to install apps on the devices. So these are purely a school device. Obviously, for our fully remote students, this learning is happening at home. But our expectations for how these devices are going to be used at home is really not any different from what they would be at school. So if you have parents asking, we're not going to be taking requests for adding any apps. Staff, you'll definitely want to get in touch with IT if there is an app that you think should be added onto the student devices, and we'll have to review that request. So just wanted to talk about apps and adding them and the processes around that. I think it's also important, and certainly this will be part of my job that I can help out with, is that we need to emphasize that these devices are for school-based learning and they're not play toys or gaming devices. So that's a primary reason why we're not taking requests from parents is we really need to emphasize what these devices are for, and it's for learning and it's for school. So I think at this point that concludes everything that I wanted to discuss.